The Chiefs have already begun making key offseason moves as they prepare for the ever-elusive three-peat, but they need to do all they can to prevent a certain scenario from playing out that could result in a massive hit being taken on the defensive side of the ball, and it's probably not the exact scenario you are thinking. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what that is as we look into the most recent news surrounding these key free agency pieces. But first, how about those? Well, a lot has happened over the last couple of days. For starters, first thing Wednesday morning, the Chiefs got it done. They announced they released wide receiver Marquez Valdes-Scantling, which was no real surprise as doing so saved them around $12 million in cap space. I did appreciate seeing the Chiefs release him so early because it gives MVS a head start on free agency as a professional courtesy. And wherever MVS ends up next, I'm definitely thankful for his contributions during the Chiefs' back-to-back Super Bowl run, but it was indeed time to move on. While MVS did show up in the playoffs both seasons he was here, his output in the regular season, specifically last year, was a career low for him in every category. He had just 21 receptions for 315 yards and 1 touchdown and was paid $11 million to do so. Again, he made some clutch plays in both playoff runs, but the Chiefs had to move on from him. This was basically a no-brainer. And as far as what's next for the Chiefs wide receiver room, that's a topic for another day. It's going to deserve its own video, probably next week. Something that does need to get discussed right now, though, is the growing optimism that the Chiefs do indeed get a deal done with defensive tackle Chris Jones. Brett Veach made it clear this was priority numero uno heading into the offseason, picking up where they left off last year with Jones and his agents, with another attempt at getting something done to allow him to finish his career as a Chief. And I think they learned a lot from negotiations during the holdout last year, so hopefully they're at a pretty good starting place considering they had months and months to wade through the waters of negotiations last offseason. They don't have time to lollygag this year, though, because March 11th is when Chris's agents can enter negotiations with any other team that's interested. So the ideal scenario is they get something done with Chris Jones ASAP. Nate Taylor thinks the Chiefs will have to offer a contract that's even more lucrative than what the Steelers gave to outside linebacker TJ Watt back in 2021 for him to finish out his career here in Kansas City. That is a truck ton of money, and I'm sure Jones will want around $30 million a year. That's about what they reportedly wanted last offseason, but the disagreement seemed to be over the guarantees. So that's going to be the thing to watch, because the Chiefs could easily present a contract to Chris Jones that averages out to $30 million a year, but have a dummy year at the end with a way out. What's going to matter most is how much Chris Jones will for sure be getting, not what it looks like on the outside or, from initially looking at this contract. So hopefully the Chiefs do get a deal done with Chris Jones, because if they lose the next two people I'm about to talk about, Chris became somehow even more important to retain, if that's even possible, considering he's the cornerstone of the Chiefs defense as it is. The first of these two that we need to talk about, it's not a huge surprise. It's defensive back Sneed, who the Chiefs informed they'd be tagging if they are unable to come to an agreement on a long-term deal and then shop him for a trade. Now, it was reported by Jordan Schultz of Bleacher Report on February 28th that the Chiefs have placed the tag on L'Jarius, but as of right now, it looks like he's yet to be officially tagged per the transaction report. But don't get it twisted, the tag is coming any day now. And with that, Combine whispers have shown several unnamed teams interested in Sneed, and with him coming off the best season of his career, you can certainly understand why. If the Chiefs are indeed able to retain Sneed via a long-term deal, his cap hit would be much lower than if they tagged him. If they tag him, it's going to be a cap hit of $19.8 million. Question is, can they agree to something long-term? It's reported that Sneed wants a 3 or 4 year deal, and considering he's only 27, coming off of his best year, I would think most teams wouldn't even blink at that request. If he's open to around 16 or so million per year, the Chiefs could work with that if they really wanted, but considering 20 of 32 teams per Mina Kimes of ESPN really need a cornerback this year in free agency and or via the draft, some may certainly be willing to offer Sneed millions more. If that's the case, the Chiefs will probably tag him and shop him for a trade, and while a long-term deal isn't completely out of the question, 70% likely he's going to get traded if a tag does happen, per the words of Nate Taylor. So what could the Chiefs get out of him in a tag and trade scenario? Well, an assistant GM in the NFL recently told Jordan Schultz that Sneed could command a second-round pick, which would be nice, but I would think the Chiefs may prefer a first-round pick if possible. but that might not be likely. So how about a second round pick and some form of a later round pick, maybe a fourth or a fifth? Either way, the Chiefs should really consider doing what they can to keep L'Jarius Sneed around, especially considering the Chiefs could potentially be losing one of their best coaches, which is problematic for more than one reason. And that coach is defensive backs coach Dave Merritt. It was reported this week that Merritt had an interview with the 49ers for their defensive coordinator position, and that's because 3 days after the 49ers lost again to Kansas City in the Super Bowl, San Francisco announced they fired their previous defensive coordinator Steve Wilks after just one season with the team. So the 49ers are currently weighing out their options, with their GM recently saying, quote, "We're in no rush" in regards to finding their next defensive coordinator. Well, it's a bit odd for a team to still be looking around for a DC this late, but hey, they made it to the Super Bowl, so I guess they are running slower than Tom Brady's 40 time due to that hangover. My hope is they end up hiring somebody like former Chargers head coach Brandon Staley, who's still available and has already been interviewed by them, but there's several reasons why they could opt to go with somebody like Dave Merritt instead, even though he's never been a defensive coordinator as of yet. For starters, he really is one of the best in the business, coaching the Chiefs defensive backs since 2019 and has done an incredible job. Think of how he raised up Charvarius Ward as just one example. Then we knew Trent McDuffie would be very good when KC drafted him. That's why they traded up to go get him. But he's been great. L'Jarius Sneed is one of the best cornerbacks in the league and has spent his entire time with Dave Merritt getting better each and every year. The Chiefs also have one of the youngest secondaries out there and were a top 5 unit this past season. Brian Cook was playing awesome before his injury. Jamari Connor, the rookie, had a solid season. And honestly, the list goes on. Look at Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson, Najee Johnson before he tore his ACL. All these guys were looking solid in the system as Merritt was able to draw out the best from each one of them. Another reason why he's probably an interest to the 49ers is because Dave Merritt has obviously been a part of the team that beat the Niners twice in the Super Bowl. So if you can't beat them, pay them to join you, right? Well, that thought has to be weighing heavily on the mind of Kyle Shanahan. Merritt also played linebacker in the NFL for 4 years, and after that was a D-line coach at Virginia Military Institute for a few years as he started out his coaching career. So if you combine all that with how much he's done as a DB coach, he has a great knowledge of every level of the defense. That's why it could be a good fit for a defensive coordinator. Merritt is also great at building rapport with players, and you can tell he's very well respected in Kansas City, both by the players and coaches. So Dave Merritt checks a lot of boxes for the 49ers and what they could be wanting in a defensive coordinator, but the question is, will Dave Merritt be ready to make the move if a deal was offered? He said back in January, a couple months ago, that he wasn't going to pursue any type of coordinating job while his kids were young, as he wanted to be there for the Friday night games, the Saturday games, and just being more available for his family. He then said, quote, "When that time arrives, if I'm afforded a position to be able to even go and interview, I will consult with my wife and then we will take the next step." Well, he has 5 kids, with his youngest 2 being 17 and 15, got a couple years left in high school, so they are nearing the end of those days of school. And honestly, if I'm Dave Merritt, this is something that would be pretty hard to pass up if the 49ers were seriously interested after the interview. I mean, it's not every day you get the opportunity to climb the ladder and be a defensive coordinator for one of the best teams in the NFL. So I get why they are interviewing Dave Merritt, but I don't like it one bit for a couple of reasons. First, as I just shared about L'Jarius Sneed, Chiefs are about to franchise tag him, and according to Nate Taylor of The Athletic, there's a 70% chance he gets traded if the tag happens for draft picks prior to the draft happening. Therefore, it would be way less than ideal for the Chiefs to lose both their lockdown corner and incredible defensive backs coach in the same offseason. And that's no disrespect to Trent McDuffie, because we all know he's a dog. But even with Trent McDuffie and other pieces they have in the secondary, this still has me worried a bit. With Dave Merritt around, we knew he could make it work with late round picks and all that. He's proven, he has a proven track record, and he is the man. So if he goes and L'Jarius Sneed goes, that would certainly be a tough pill to swallow. Another reason I don't like this is the 49ers are a team that has proven to be able to make it to the Super Bowl, or the conference championship game year in and year out. So the last thing I would like to see is Dave Merritt facing off against KC in the big game down the road, with him so well acquainted with the Chiefs defense. We know he's one of Steve Spagnuolo's right-hand guys. But with all that being said, what do you guys think about all this? Do you think the Chiefs should do what they can to keep Dave Merritt around, maybe even give him a raise, especially if Sneed is most likely to get traded? I understand you can't force a coach to stay somewhere and should be happy for them to continue climbing up the coaching ladder, but if Merritt goes, I hope the Chiefs reconsider L'Jarius Sneed's importance and at least contemplate paying him a bit more if needs be to keep him around. Let me know your thoughts on all this though in the comments down below, and until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?